still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com.
Requesting a taste with you, well, you've gone sour. You want the world plus everything, but you won't work an hour. And now your questions are get creeping, and you're going buying flowers. You throw away the dreams we had, boy. I wanna allow it. I said we're gonna fall out. Let's see you get out. I think we're gonna fall out. So shut your mouth.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is the professionals with me, Steve Wraith, and it's welcome to Stu and Mitch. How are you, lads?
Very well indeed.
Good stuff. Mitch is having a few issues with his internet, so we will hopefully have him for the next hour. We're only doing an hour tonight, so probably won't get through many questions, and we're going to be looking back at yesterday's game and looking ahead to Benfica on Tuesday night as well. Just want to give a shout out to James, who has been approved as the official Suffolk supporters group. His group down there has been approved now. So anyone who watches the show and who lives in the Suffolk area, you can find the NUFC official Newcastle group for Suffolk on Facebook. So get yourself over to Facebook, search that, and you'll be able to meet a few people who you probably didn't know were black and white. You might have passed them in the street and didn't realise they didn't support Ipswich or Norwich. So there you go. Get yourself down. Thanks, James, for your email and letting us know. We all felt it was going to be a tight game yesterday. Certainly I did. I did think Newcastle would have enough to win that game. Despite the fact that, you know, we'd had a few players on international break and had done more miles than the Proclaimers, but it wasn't to be. And Voldemort's goal aside, there wasn't really much to shout about. Nick Pope with a couple of decent saves again this season, still proving that he's probably one of the best shot stoppers in the Premier League. But it's left everyone a bit down, and this is what happens. This is what happens, and I think a bit of calm is called for. I certainly agree with what Mark Douglas put out today on Twitter. Steve Hasty pointed us in the direction of that. He was right. And I put a thing out very similar about certain things that aren't working, etc. But, you know, it's early days. And I think somebody also compared this to maybe last season when, we were 12th in December. We got into Europe in the Champions League and we won the Carabao Cup. So I know it's an old adage, but nothing's handed out in October. Everything gets handed out in May. So let's not get too downhearted. Let's not get too upset. There has been a few issues in the summer and now there's a few injury problems, but it's not the end of the season. We're still chasing the Champions League qualification into the next round. We're still in the Carabao Cup and we're still got the FA Cup to look forward to. So it's not doom and gloom. And yes, Sunderland are ahead of us now, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be ahead of us come May, which of course is an added problem this year. But let's get Stu's point of view on this. Stu, 2-1 defeat. That man again, Danny Welbeck, hadn't scored since February, gets 2 goals again. His Sunderland connections are well known, of course, but 2 goals for Welbeck. And I don't think we deserved anything yesterday, really.
You said it yourself, Steve. We had enough to win. We had enough players, talent-wise, to go and win that game. But it seems to be, for me, I think if we give enough excuses and say them enough times, they become reasons. Like, are we the only team that had players on international duty? And for me, it's tiresome where it's used as an excuse. Oh, so-and-so travelled. Every top team has international players that travel. and we can. And at the moment, it looks like Elanga's getting the ire of the fans. He seems to be the one. There has to be someone that gets the boos. It's been Gordon, it's been Byrne, it's been Miley so far, Nick Pope this season. And that, for me, it's a bit boring. Regarding Elanga, he's finding his feet. And why don't we just try and actually support the lad instead of, because he will read social media as well. So instead of criticism, show them what we're capable of as a set of supporters. Do we just support them when they're doing well, or should we rally around them and get our arms around them when they need it? For me, I think they should give him a run of games and let him learn the role, because he's not going to learn it on the bench, is he? And the scouting for him was extensive, and our scouting team don't make mistakes. He will come good. I've got no doubt about that at all. But maybe the fans should be asking questions of the supposed fans' favourites, that are already established players in the team who know the role, who knows what's expected of them. And for me, haven't delivered anywhere near the best this season. And without naming names, we could say that our number 7 and number 10 certainly fall into that category. They're not going to doubt the willingness to the cause. But it frustrates me. I even watched an England game during the week. I did till half-time, and genuinely I fell asleep. But I have been working, not because of the game. And it was magic watching Gordon get the ball and hit the byline. They take the take the defender out the outside and get the ball across. But for me, at the moment, he's too predictable, and it's frustrating because we know how good he is. But saying that, I'm not blaming him for yesterday's defeat, because unless your name was Nick yesterday, nobody played well. And that's where we are. We don't have the luxury of having more than 2, maybe 3 players not performing to anywhere near the best and still win games. But that game yesterday was absolutely winnable. But we can all be wise after the event. I had a call with Mitch on, was it Saturday morning, Mitch?
Yes.
Friday. I can't remember. I'm working every day, so all rolled into one. All rolled into one. But I know it was Friday, because you mentioned it on the Amigos on Friday night, that everyone seemed to be wetting their pants about Dan Byrne facing pace. But my concern was more if Matoma was fit and what he could have done to Trippier. Thankfully, he didn't start the game, so that was put to one side. But before the game, everyone, myself included, I put in our little group chat that I would start Ramsey and I would have started Murphy, simply because the miles are done. And I think with Elanga's, I'll probably contradict myself now, but with the way the Elanga had not played for Sweden, and he seems to have had a set to with the then coach, John Dahl Thomason, I think that I would have rested both of them, or rotated them, not dropped them, rotated them, and put them in against Benfica on Tuesday. Given those extra few days to get the head right and get physically right. That's how I would have done it. Then you had the Barnes and Gordon conundrum, Murphy, Elanga and all that. But for me, yesterday, Steve, we'll give them a 45-minute head start. And we shouldn't do that, and we shouldn't be in a position where we think we can do that. There was too many people not at it, and we can say, yes, there was a double handball near the end that should have or could have brought a penalty. But where's the urgency? And we seem to fall in this trap away games. It's still the pitch, or the pitches are roughly the same size, and it's still 11 versus 11. Why can't we take the game to them? Some teams do that to us at St. James Park, so why can't we do it to them at their ground? And I honestly think Brighton were there for the taking. But when your team's playing unusually shade, it's difficult to pick positives out of it. But the main positive, as I said, the 2 nicks, Pope and goal, and Voldemort. I mean, what a finish that was. And we've got someone there that will only get better. And yes, he needs support. Yes, he's already got the confidence, and I think we should be treasuring him. He is something special. But what we can't do is rely on him, and that's something Eddie Howe mentioned in his presser after the game, when he was clearly saying, yes, he's doing very well, but we need other people to start chipping in with goals and assists. And it's just one of those we're going to take on the chin. And we got beat yesterday. The frustrating part of anything, we're going into this stretch of games up till the next international. Then, you got the Brightons, the West Hams and Fulhams. And there's something I highlighted at the end of last season where these are the teams where we dropped too many points against, which, on paper, we're looking to think, right, we should be beating these. Already now, we're a point less than what we got at Brighton last season. So Fulham at home come Saturday is a must-win game for me. We need to start getting back up because I think we're on 9 points. We've got 30 games left. To get in the Champions League, we're going to have to get to 69 points. So we need to get 2 points a game. And that's not easy in this league. And I've just about finished as Mitch has disappeared.
Yeah, I just did a little bit of research there while you were talking, actually, because it's always intriguing to find out how many players went on international duty for Brighton, because obviously we know how many went away for Newcastle. But if you take away the 2 players who are still Brighton players but are out on loan, you're still looking at 11 first-team players who were on international duty for Brighton. So it was even for both teams, really, Stu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you made that point there. And again, people can talk about Champions League, but we've only played 2 games in the Champions League, and we haven't had to do lots of travelling in the Champions League. So is that really playing its part?
No, I think it's a convenient excuse where we start, as I said earlier, we start believing it and it becomes a reason. And from a player's perspective, representing your country is the pinnacle of your career. Yes, we're selfish. We want them only playing for Newcastle United, but we'll never get the best players if they're not playing for the country. That's what we want. And it's part of the course, isn't it? You've got to accept that if we're signing top-class players, the likelihood is they're going to be internationals. But if you look at the Man Cities, the Liverpools, the Arsenals, the teams that were trying to catch up, Chelsea included, how many players did they have away? The dressing room would have been emptier than a Mackham's head, I would imagine, for most of those teams. So you have to take into consideration that we're not the only one, but we start talking about it and keep mentioning it. But you can manage minutes, and it might highlight the squad depth isn't there, but this squad's a lot more filled out than it was last season. So that's, for me, I'm verging on making a critical comment on Eddie Howe, which anyone who watches this knows I'm very loath to do. But as I said, we could be wise after the event, but he's looked at it. He gave his reasons again in the press conference afterwards that Miley had also been injured, hadn't trained for 2 weeks, and Ramsey is just coming back from an injury. So to start them, it was the flip of a coin. So he went with his tried and tested, and had it worked, had we dominated the first half if we continued as we did after the first 10 minutes, we would have won. But to use tiredness as an excuse, for me, it doesn't wash. And it's a mindset thing. And now this is where the big calls have to be made. This is why we have a squad to rotate. And for me, you've got to earn your right to wear that shirt. And everyone's entitled to an off game. Tonali wasn't at his best, anywhere near his best yesterday, but we know that's 1 in 10 that happens. But you've got other players, which is like 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 games this season where they haven't performed anywhere near their best. And this is where anyhow will get it right. I've got every faith and he will get it right. But yesterday, as I said, wise after the event, there was changes that probably should have been made that weren't made.
Mitch, what was your take on the game? Houston, we got a problem.
Frustration. We had a 10-minute period either side of Walter's goal where we were better than the entire rest of the game put together. And probably could have wrapped it up. Now, this is the mobile signal. That's shite as well, probably because everybody's trying to use it. Hang on.
Yeah, we're still having issues with Mitch's technology, unfortunately, and there's a delay, which makes it even worse. It means it was a minute of delay there, unfortunately, because he's not got the greatest of internet. So we're just going to have to crack on with Stu. I did have Steve Hasty lined up, but Mitch's signal seemed to be okay, so I've asked Steve not to come on now. But it's one of them. We'll just have to crack on. We're only on air till 6 o'clock, Stu. So just because we don't prepare the show, I just want to ask you about the Nottingham Forest situation. Obviously, Ange Postecoglou got sacked yesterday. I mean, it was excruciating watching him stand in the middle of that pitch after the match. I mean, the chairman departed after 65 minutes. And I think we all knew then that, when that third goal went in, his time was numbered. But, I mean, is 8 games really enough to turn it round for a Premiership manager, Stu?
It's not, but it was, for me, it was an obscure appointment in the first place. The way that Nuno had the team built was on a solid defence and hitting on the attack, and he's the polar opposite of that, isn't he? So if you're going to change how they play, and I understand the chairman wanted to have a more attacking brand of football, etc., and it's his right, it's his club. He's the one he's not his club, he's the chairman, the owner of it, but he's the one that is putting his money where his mouth is. But he's spending more money than he should, but that's their issue. And I'm glad it's not us. I'm glad we don't have trigger-happy owners that will, after a run of bad results, will just get rid of someone. But for me, I think it was with Nuno, it seemed to be more personal rather than professional, which doesn't sit right. The guy's been brought in to do a job, and if you look at where Forest were 2 seasons ago to where they finished last season, so in the space of 2 seasons, he took them from nigh on relegation certainties into Europe, and a lot of the players have improved with them, with Ellie Allenson being one. But I watched their game yesterday, and I'm not even joking, I didn't even realise Gibbs White was playing until about the 80th minute. And again, sometimes the players start hiding, and they can use it as an excuse. I'm not getting on with the manager. These people are professionals, or they should be, and they should always try their best. That's what we want as fans, whether it's you support Newcastle, Forest, or any team. You want the players representing you to give their best. And it looked yesterday for the first half that they give everything, and it looked like, for Chelsea's perspective, they'd weathered the storm and thought, right, they've got nothing left to give. They've burnt themselves out, and Chelsea showed their class by picking them off. And regarding, it's a strange decision to sack him, but also it seemed like he brought him in because he was like someone he knew personally, and then to get rid of him, it shows that he's a knee-jerk person, isn't he? He's just looked at that and reacted. If he was doing it properly, he should have done it before the window and give any new manager an opportunity to work with whatever players they had left and try and implement some sort of strategy. But it's worrying times for Nottingham Forest fans at the moment, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely is. And obviously, the connection we've got with Nottingham Forest, other than Elliot Anderson, is Alanga. I mean, it seems to be a confidence thing with him. I think once he gets that little bit of confidence, I think we'll see a different player. But I think as well, we've been used to having partnerships on the left and right, and it takes time to forge a partnership. And I think that's half the problem. I think if Livramento was playing with Alanga or Lewis Hall was playing with Anthony Gordon, I think would be in a much better position this season. But we've got injuries in those positions, and I just don't, Alanga and Trippier is not working. I think Alanga's really suffering from it the most on that right-hand side.
He is, but he will come good. I touched on it at the start of the show there, Steve. They've done enough scouting on him to know what he's capable of. It doesn't help. But again, are we giving excuses? It doesn't matter if he's playing with Trippier or Livramento, they're both quality players. But is his confidence affected, or is it a fact that he's been coached to retain the ball more? If you remember when he was at Forest, the idea was get the ball to him, knock it over and let him run, let him show his pace and get it across because they were on the counter-attack. But his pace gets nullified when we're bossing possession, so he's learning new things, and it's about ball retention and stuff like that. So there was an opportunity yesterday when he was away, and then he stopped, he checked himself, didn't he? And then ended up passing it back. Personally, I'd rather him just burst through on goal and take a shot and miss, because you never know. If you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the lottery. But if he takes a shot, it could go for a corner. The keeper could save it. It could come out to an oncoming player. But they'll work it out, and they will. And I've got every confidence that he's one goal or one assist away from cracking it. And it's more mental pressure on him than anything else. He really wants to succeed. You've seen when he first signed, when they were in Austria, the way he was welcomed into the squad and how he knew a few players. So I don't think there's teething problems or issues like that. I think he's maybe just trying too hard, but also his job is not to impress us as fans, it's to impress Eddie Howe and the coaching staff. And if they're telling him this is what we want you to do, he's got to learn that. And that gets coached out of what he's learned previously. So am I giving reasons or excuses myself? I don't know, but I'll say it again. I've got no doubt in my mind that Alanga will be a huge success for us.
What about the left-hand side with Gordon? Chippers thinks that Gordon's only turning up for England and not for us. I mean, is he right?
No, I wouldn't say he's right. I think he's had better performances for England than he has for us. I've seen someone comment before that Gordon was wearing a Newcastle shirt. He scored twice in Belgium. He did. And that could be derogatory and say there were 2 penalties, but there were 2 very well taken penalties. My major concern for Gordon is that he's becoming too predictable, like what St. Maximin was. Where as soon as he gets the ball, he goes for the safe option of cutting inside where he's got, different people he could pass to. And it becomes too predictable. Whereas for England, he does, as I said earlier, he does try and get to the touchline and use his pace because he is quick, especially over the first 5-10 yards. And that's the defender beat. And even if he mixed it up a little bit, he'd be a lot more effective. But as soon as he gets the ball, he's going to cut inside and play it safe. Maybe it's, I don't know, is it for passing stats or stuff like that? Anthony Gordon has been and can be and will be a major force for Newcastle United's success this season. And I don't think he's putting England first, where he says, I want to play well for England, but I'm not bothered if I play well for Newcastle. I truly believe he wants to play well for Newcastle, and he understands if he's not playing well for Newcastle, eventually he won't get picked for England. But in World Cup, I can't blame the lad for having an England squad is his priority. There's nothing wrong with that. From a football perspective, that should actually benefit us. If he wants to make sure he plays the England team, he has to keep playing well or start playing well for us. We talked about it, I think it was last week, the type of, you've got Rashford there, you've got Madueke at Arsenal, who's now injured, you've got Grealish, who's the press are really bigging up. So at the moment, being in England squad in September, October is not going to doesn't guarantee you to get there in June. And I think that's the same thing for Dan Burn as well. It's strange how circumstances change, but back to Chippers' point, I don't think he's choosing to play better for England than he is for Newcastle. In the games he's played for England, he's playing against lesser opposition, what you play every week in the Premier League as well. We have to take that into consideration. But he is capable of more, and it's not me or any fan demanding more of him and putting unrealistic expectations on him. He's done it. We know he's capable of more. And just by mixing it up that little bit, he'll end up getting better very quickly. Because if the defender knows he's going to cut inside, then you just block it. But if he starts second, the defender has to start second guessing. Is he going this way or that way? That's when Gordon can use his pace because he's quick in mind as well. And I'm really, really hoping that it clicks for him soon. So again, he's a sort of player. He is a confidence player. And I want him and Alanga both to start on Tuesday night and keep starting them until they get that confidence where you can then say, right, now we'll rest you. But Gordon, for me, has been underwhelming this season, but that's only because of the high bar he's set. He is a fantastic player, and we want him back to his best as quickly as possible.
Okay, I did get an email from John Askew a little bit earlier today. John, as always, writes a big email, so here we go. We'll let them have a little bit of time in the sunshine. To be honest, they've got a decent support, and in mid-October there are a few points in a few places above the Magpies. And if the Mackhams are putting the bunting out to celebrate the current relative league positions of the North East's top two, then so be it. There's even phone calls to certain radio shows pointing out that we need to mind the gap. Perhaps it's understandable, but it's not very original, and there won't be too many Mags losing any sleep. I'm not gloating, but we're still in the Carabao with a home draw next round. We're actually defending our cup. We're just doing fine in the Champions League and welcome those from the original, real, proper Stadium of Light on Tuesday to our city. OK, that is a little bit of a gloat, but only a small one. And the FA Cup campaign starts in January, and the league's still got 7 months to go, so it's far from doom and gloom here on Tyneside. There's little doubt that the last 6 months have been massive for our Wearside cousins, and to be fair, you've got to hand it to them. They've clearly got something right, but they must think twice about goading the Geordies. Things turn very quickly in football, and while 1 week the sun might be out with a lovely blue sky, the football and dark clouds can roll in very quickly the next. And remember, we're owned by PIF and the Reuben brothers, and I know whose football boots I'd rather be in. So there's no need to panic. We've still got Bruno in the middle, and while squad enhancement is clearly stifled by PSR, we seem to be trending in the right direction. It'll take time to reach our ultimate goal, but one day we'll get there. And if there's the occasional hint of the good times at Sunderland, then that's okay. It's doubtful they'll ever aspire to be number one, but if they do have a decent run, you could argue that's no bad thing for our wider region. Some might say anyway. Of course, we all want the good stuff ASAP, and there are clearly challenges at Newcastle we need to address. I always thought the Brighton game was a good one to give us an idea of where we were in terms of genuine quality. Far too often last season, there were games where our fans were saying the opposition were there for the taking, but we failed to do it. And it happened again yesterday. Alanga, hooked at half-time, raises justifiable questions of whether he can cut it. And am I wrong in thinking that the winner came from a Titus Bramble-style intervention from the guy we all know shouldn't be played at left-back in an ideal world? We seem to have things under control. Then wham, bam, we've conceded. I don't blame Dan. It's just when you're playing out of position, such questionable judgment happens. And will Joel Linton ever get back to his best? So while challenges clearly exist on Barrack Road, we can take comfort that we've probably got the best owners around who still seem determined to drive us forward. And if Eddie, David and Ross are all on the same page, we can look forward to continual improvement on the pitch. After all, that's where it's all got to happen. And if some Sunderland fans are enjoying the Premier League table at the minute, then frankly, I don't blame them. Perhaps they should enjoy it while it lasts. Great email, John, as always. And welcome to Steve Hasty. Is it putting a bit of pressure on a Sunderland being in the Premier League, Stu?
Well, thanks for the email, John. That's all we've got time for this week. I don't even know why. But yes, we haven't had the best of starts, and credit where it's due. Sunderland have massively overachieved, where they've beyond even probably their own fans' expectations. But Newcastle and Sunderland shouldn't even be in the same conversation. And if they're ahead of us now, as you said at the start of the show, Steve, nothing gets given out in October. I'm not concerned about them in the slightest. I don't give them a second thought. For the simple reason is, man for man, we are far better than them. And yeah, they're overachieved and they've got themselves a head start. I still think they'll get relegated. The fixture list or the twist of fate has been kind to them, the way they've had to play certain teams who at the start of the season you wouldn't expect to be in turmoil, but are. But again, to their credit, they've taken advantage of the situation they've been in and managed to get some results together. So if we have to talk about Sunderland, hopefully not for much longer, credit to them. But it really doesn't concern me that they're ahead of us at the moment, because we all know and they all know that it's not going to last. So let them enjoy the moment in the spotlight. If their ambition is to be the number one in the Northeast, our ambition is to be number one in the country and number one in Europe. And that sort of separates, so tells you the differences between the two clubs. But it's all right for me being afar. I'm not at work with Mackhams. I don't see many of them, thankfully. And I can understand it being a bit tougher for people back home when, they've got it Mackham. But if that's the best thing they've got to crow about for the first time in 10 years, then, just smile at them, and give them a little pat on the back or a little tap on the head and say, no, you're brilliant. Just keep building them up, because they will fall down. and we will continue to rise. They've had a good start, and that's it. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, and we'll finish a lot stronger than them, and they know it and we know it. And regarding the big Dan Burn thing, I thought it was an excellent tackle he made.
And the ball,
yeah, he was unlucky. So it doesn't matter if he's out of position or he shouldn't be playing. There's not much choice there, and I thought it was a brilliant tackle. And if you look at the games he's had to play at left back, he's done admirably. You'd expect people to target that. Now, bear in mind, we've just talked about Gordon should be using his pace to beat their fullback, which in turn means our fullbacks will get beat occasionally. But I think he acquitted himself well. Where we suffer as a team is he's not going to go galloping down the wing and offer an alternative to Gordon. And that's a problem, because Lewis Hall would do that and Tino Livramento was doing that. And giving Gordon the option of playing out wide or cutting inside. And at the moment, he doesn't have that luxury. But Dan Burns, he's done a great job, and hopefully that continues, because at the moment, we've got nothing else.
Yeah. Steve, good evening. Thanks for stepping in, mate, at short notice. Sunderland, does it put a bit extra pressure on Newcastle, them being in the Premier League and doing well at the moment? I mean, that's just another thing that people can grumble and complain about, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just the usual rhetoric, isn't it, that you get post-match when you've lost and Sunderland have won, and that's what you expect. You expect a bit of banter. The cream always rises to the top. We know that. You can't knock them. They've had a good start. They've got the points on the board, and if we're going to be honest, nobody expected them to have the start that they've had, simply because of the number of changes that they had to make, the number of players that they brought in. I think they brought 12 or 13, maybe more players in, 90% of whom, or 95% of whom, nobody had ever heard of. But the manager's done really, really well to hold them together, and good luck to them. But as I say, the cream always rises to the top, and I think we're just a little bit out of sorts. That's all. I looked at yesterday's game, and on paper you would have gone, yeah, that's a good lineup, but it was what we actually did on the pitch, with players who are quality, just not quite coming to the top of that game. We played a little bit too tight across the middle, and I think we had a conversation about that early doors today. That we've seen the photographs that people have posted, and I think, to be perfectly honest, I was like Stu. I was ready to do the screenshots yesterday myself, because it was plain to see that they were getting behind our midfield three every time they broke. I thought the defensively the four were quite narrow. They weren't getting the support from the two wide men. When you start to put it all together, you start to see the faults, and you start to criticise, and you start to question why, if you can see it, why the manager, the coach, the coaching team aren't doing anything to compensate, anything to combat the way that the opposition has lined up, the way that the opposition is managing you rather than you managing them. And there's a perfect example. They're all running back. All four defenders along the back line have all got their back to the ball. The midfield three of theirs, or the midfield two, they're running at them, and our three lads are chasing them. And if we taken the other photograph, we'd have seen the two wide men are standing on the halfway line. I think half the problem is we've got a very, very deep line centre forward. He's great. He's, you cannot knock the lad in the box. You cannot knock the lad's touch play, but I think the rest of the team are trying to adapt to him at the moment. And for all his good play, it's creating issues for one or two who are slightly out of form, just not quite with it, and not quite up to speed. There's various other points that you could look at. You could look at the fact that Tonali was playing across a flat back three. I thought in the first half, he controlled the pace of the game, and I thought that the pace that he was putting into it was typical Italian. It was like watching something from the Italia in the 90s. He was just controlling the midfield, but it was slow passing. He was getting the ball back. As soon as he played the ball, someone would play it back to him. He then went for a different angle, and then the ball would come back. And we were going forward in 5-yard bursts, not the 30-yard bursts. We seem to lack that decisiveness, that attacking prowess that we've been used to, that quick break, dynamic, with passes to feet that that become intricate. What happens at the moment is we're playing those intricate passes in front of their back four, but they're just stifling them because the runs for those passes are perhaps not good enough, not quick enough. Right across the board, I thought we were a yard off, and that's no disrespect to anyone. And as far as Dan Burn, Stu, yeah, it was a good tackle. It was a good tackle by his centre back. Unfortunately, he was playing left back. He tackled him with his right foot. He played the ball inside. They knew what to do. They knew how to turn him. Very, very difficult for a fullback the size of Dan Burn when somebody's coming out and then pulls inside. And unfortunately, the tackle immediately teed up. And I thought when Dan Burn went for it, he kind of got in the way of Botman, I think Botman was trying to manage the player and trying to push him down the side. And of course, when Burn put the tackle in, then there was a little hole that just appeared. But this is the Premier League. This is what happens. It's very, very fine margins. I didn't think Brighton played that well, to be perfectly honest. And I didn't think that at times that we deserved the rub of the green. I thought the referee did an awful lot to slow the game down. He seemed to be whistle happy. And they, with the last 10 minutes, they did what many teams in the Premier League do now. Not only shut up shop, but they fall over and lie on the ground. And, there was they had a centre back who barely crossed the halfway line all game. And he went down with cramp on the 89th minute. And you're thinking, how man? The referee should have just told him to get up. And instead, he was down for about 2 or 3 minutes. There was only 6 minutes added on anyway. And you're just looking at it. I think their other centre half, he went down injured at one point as well. And you're thinking, these lads are just dropping. That's the game management. I think that that's what happens when you're 2-1 down and you're not really pushing for it. And the opposition go, you know what, we can, even if they try to push it, we'll just kill it because we'll make sure that they don't have the ball, because we'll make sure nobody has it. We'll just run the clock down. And I thought that, excuse me, at the end of it, I thought we were just happy for the clock to run down and keep it at 2-1. It was just one of those days where you just thought, even when we got the goal back, you thought, something's going to happen here. And I didn't honestly think it was going to be us nabbing a 2-1. If anything was going to happen, it was going to be a 1-1. And I said 1-1 on Friday night, and I failed again.
Stu Voldemort getting some praise in the chat, so it would be remiss not to have a chat about him. We're not creating lots of chances, but he's certainly finding the back of the net on a relatively regular basis at the moment. And you mentioned it earlier, but it was a great finish, wasn't it? He looks like he shouldn't be able to score those kind of goals, but what a player at the moment.
And he meant it as well, didn't he? It wasn't just like, oh, I'll try this. He knew what he was doing. And that's what I was saying earlier, he's something special and we need to protect him and nurture him, because if he was to get injured, what happens next? So this is where the squad has become stressed, but Voldemort is getting praised because he deserves it. He has hit the ground running, and I think because of that, maybe that highlights the Langas and stuff like that more. In an ideal world, everyone takes to it like a duck to water, but we need to be grateful and appreciative that the fact that he has come in and performed as well as he has. He's not going to go past 3 or 4 players in a burst of pace, but he might dribble past 1 or 2. But he seems to be selfless in a way where he will and wants to and looks to bring other people in. And there seems to be a clamour for him and Wissa to play together. I don't see that. I think they'll alternate them like they did with Isaac and Wilson in the first time we qualified for the Champions League. First time in recent times. Where 60 minutes one game, 30 minutes the next, and rotate them that way to get the best out of them. Because anyhow, wants to play the 4-3-3, and we've got players built for that system when we've got everyone fully fit, with the long bursting runs from Hall and from Tino at the fullbacks. So if we're going to go 4-4-2, that means we're going to lose wingers. I know some might say that we haven't had them all season anyway, but that means we'll have to lose wingers to overcompensate in midfield. And for me, that's not the type of high energy football that this team plays. So I don't think they will start. Again, just my opinion. I don't think they'll start the two of them together that much often. But it would be great to have the opportunity to rest and rotate, and that way we'll get the maximum of both of them. So I see the question there regarding should Wissa go to the AFCON. If he's fit, then yeah, he should. And I know that's probably flies in the face of the mass of Newcastle supporters who think he owes us. He doesn't owe us anything. We've bought him. And I touched on before that it's every player's privilege to play to represent the country. He'll always be from the Democratic Republic of Congo. He may not always be for a player for Newcastle. And that is the pinnacle of the career. It's just unfortunate the way things have worked out, injury-wise and the timing of it. But ultimately, I don't think Eddie Howe would stop him. I don't think he would have that conversation saying, I don't want you to go, because he would lose respect of the player. You know, if the player decides not to represent his country, that's his decision. I don't think that should be enforced on him in the slightest. But getting back to the original point, we should be very grateful for Walter Marty, and in every performance he gives, every goal he scores, it just makes it a bit more, for us, a bit more smiles on our face towards the Bayern Munich-led abuse he's received back home in Germany. You know, it just shows how bitter they were that he didn't sign for them, so we'll start rubbishing them. And if that's his motivation, fine. But for me, I don't think it is. I think he wants to play football, and he's grateful for the opportunity of Newcastle United and how much we've believed in him. And it's a marriage made in heaven so far, and a long way to continue.
Voldemort certainly taking the bull by the horns and getting some goals for us, Steve. But like Stu said, he meant that yesterday.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew where he was on the pitch. It shows the confidence of the lad. He's not fazed by anything. He's got confidence in himself. And I think the rest of the team are looking at him now and think, well, if we get the ball to him, we know he's going to do something with it, no matter whereabouts on the pitch he is. I think, as I said earlier, I see him as a more of a deep-lying centre forward, and the problem is that we also are supposed to play, because he hasn't got much pace, or at least if he has got pace, we haven't seen much of it. But because we're playing what's supposed to be two flying wingers, so we're supposed to be supplying them with ammunition, and they're not producing the goods. And we saw, as we said earlier, we saw yesterday how our central midfield three, playing very, very close and very, very tight, were very, very easily turned. And I'm wondering whether or not Eddie needs to look at his formation. And one of the reasons being, I feel, and you know, people can question it, I'd love them to. When we don't have a fully fit Joe Linton, we don't have someone who plays like Joe Linton coming in to replace him. Or at least Eddie doesn't select anyone like that if he has them. And because of that, we stick with the 4-3-3, but we weaken our midfield, because on his day, you know, he can be unplayable, and he's tackling and his ferociousness, and when the team's playing with pace and his running, it complements the other two in midfield. So is it that Eddie needs to sort of look to Tonali and say, right, you need to drop into sitting behind the back four, or in front of the back four, sorry. Do we get a midfield three in front of Tonali with a little bit where they can stretch a little bit? And do we go with two up front? Now, if Voldemort has one of them, it's got to somebody who's going to play off him at the moment. And to be perfectly honest, on Newcastle form, I don't think we've seen Gordon or Elanga do anything to justify keeping their places as wide men wingers, and nor has Harvey Barnes. They're not producing the passing that's needed. So should Eddie be looking at? And I know he's rigid in his formation. He loves the 4-3-3. But is that something that perhaps we might need to do, just to shore up that midfield, make it very, very difficult for the opposition, and then to use Valdemar with his playoff to knock the ball to someone who can run on and score goals? And big question who it would be. Is it going to be Alanga? Is it Barnes? Is it Gordon that would play more in that? So you kind of got a deep line number 9, and you've got a number 10 who's literally just playing off him. Do we need that balance of a 4-3-3 with a wide man on the left and a wide man on the right, and with nobody in the middle, with Voldemort still playing as like an inverted striker, because his link-up play is absolutely brilliant. But it's then the gaps that we're leaving up front, and we're not getting the goals. And I mean, the goals that he got yesterday, a nice little bit of touch play, a nice little bit of possession play, and a nice pass in. I think it was by Murphy, who then played it to Miley, who cut it across. I don't think anyone would have expected in that position that you would have got a nice little flick like that. I think you could just see by everybody in the crowd when it went in, it was more shock than anything. But that's what he can give you. But if it's that rarity that we've got to do more in the game. We've got to avoid this idea of always having the back three being cut open, because I think certainly Brighton's tactics were, we know we can do that to Newcastle, but for some reason we just didn't counter it in any way, shape or form, and the changes didn't really help us in that respect. It was, I think that's where we're perhaps in Eddie's rigidness of a 4-3-3, and I think he possibly needs to change it, but he won't, I don't think. And I'm not the manager, I'm not the coach. I'm a bloke who watches on TV and commentates and puts my opinion over. But I'm just looking at it and thinking, we've got to do something. We've got to do something to change. If for no other reason, then we've got to get the opposition to start guessing what we're up to, not predicting and getting it right. We've got to have them to start thinking and playing and changing it, and them trying to chase us rather than the other way around.
Okay, Newcastle United are back in Champions League action this coming Tuesday, 8 o'clock kick-off against Benfica at home. Last season, Benfica were the Portuguese league runners-up. Well, we know Tino Livramento, Lewis Hall and Johan Wissa remain unavailable. We have no team news on Benfica, but ahead of their trip to Tyneside, they were in cup action at second-tier side G-Day Chavez on Friday night. They won 2-0 with Greek striker Vangelis Pavidas scoring both goals. The Portuguese side remained pointless after their opening 2 Champions League fixtures, a 3-2 home defeat by FK Karabag and a 1-0 loss away to Chelsea. Jose Mourinho is set to take charge of a side at St James's Park for the 13th time in his career, having won just 3 of his dozen visits to date. And most of those games, of course, involving Chelsea. He did also manage Manchester United and Spurs at St James's Park. No news on the referee or VAR at this moment in time. Please be aware as well that the food bank will be in operation, so you can get yourself across to the food bank and make a donation on Tuesday night. Not the first time as well that we've played Portuguese opposition. You go back to those glorious days of 68-69. Newcastle took on Sporting Lisbon and Vitória Setúbal, winning 1-0 and 5-1 respectively. 69-70, the following year we played Porto, and lost, won 1-0 with Scott getting the goal. And then in the noughties, we've played Sporting Lisbon a couple of times with a 1-1 draw, Bellamy getting the goal, a 1-0 win, Shearer getting the goal. And then in 2012-13, we played Maritimo, drawn 1-1. Marvo with the goal. And 2012-13, we played Benfica and got a 1-1 draw with Cisse getting the goal. So, this is a good opportunity, I guess, to get back straight away. You know, the games are going to come thick and fast over the next couple of weeks and before the next international break. So, not too long to dwell on the defeat at the Amex.
There's not, and for me, it's an ideal game. And if you look at the last time we put in what you'd probably call a subpar performance, and that was against Arsenal, and we managed to right those wrongs straight away in Europe, and hopefully history repeats itself. Where I honestly think that back at home, the crowd will be up for it. We've got players with a point to prove, and they'll know they've let each other down, they've let themselves down, they've let the fans down. You think how long it takes for people to travel to Brighton. You know, I know Denise and that went down yesterday. You know, for them to go in a car, you could fly to one of the European games quicker. You know, so there's a synergy between the players and the fans, and I fully believe the players know that they let everyone down yesterday. But thankfully for us, they've got an opportunity to put it right. So is that Daz smiling?
Yeah. Denise is there. Daz isn't with her. She was in a different part of the ground with Daz.
Okay. So we have to be grateful that we've got a Champions League game coming up. Imagine we didn't have. Imagine that this is our rewards for the efforts that we put in last season. I know someone said at the top of the show, come December, that we were 12th, but I don't think we'll be anywhere near the mid-tables. I think come this December, we'll be in the European places, but we need to start winning, and it's a good habit to have. And there's no better opportunity than tomorrow night, isn't it? Tuesday night, 2 days' time, where we can put in. Now, with Voldemort, if he scores a goal like that again and it's a winner, do you think the headlines will be hair flick? Because that would be... for me, I thought that was an obvious choice, but then Brighton went and scored, and it spoiled it all, didn't it? But I honestly think we'll take them to town. I think we'll get... I know I've always done the 3-1, but this morning when I was getting myself more positive, I was thinking, you know what, we can go and batter these, we can impose ourselves properly, and we can blow them out the water the first 20, 30 minutes. And I think we could win 4-0 or even 4-1. But I think we'll win comfortably, and it'll be the energy. Now, if you look at the internationals who played, the last game was played on Tuesday, I think. So they had 4 days to recover. We've only got 3 days to recover for this one, and you'll see there'll be a different level of energy, and I think a lot of it is mental. And you can think, the more you think you're tired, you become tired. And I always use the analogy of Ruud Gullit, what he was saying, Alan Shearer, you know, the way he kept putting him down. And then in his first game, Sir Bobby says to him, "You're the best striker in the world, and I'm going to build this team around you," and he scores 5. So Shearer said we're struggling to have 4 shots on target. I think we'll have 4 shots within the first 20 minutes on Tuesday. I honestly think that they're going to go on a shoot on sight strategy, and that's what we need. We need to just be what we can be, and the idea is that we're a high intensity team. We'll go and do it and show what we're capable of, because Benfica are there for the taking. We know that Marino's going to come with these spoiling tactics, but we know them. And I agree with you, George, 4-0. I think that we will win comfortably, but we'll deserve to. And we, as fans, are owed that performance, and I'm sure the players will give it to us.
Are you going to... I mean, there's got to be changes to that team, though. There has to be changes to the team.
I would play Miley. He deserves it. His ball retention's great. He's creative. He sees the pass. And he can hold on to it, you know what I mean? He's a big strapping young lad now, and he's at a stage where maybe he needs to run the games, and long term that could benefit us. Now, whether that's to replace Joe Linton, whether it's to replace Bruno, or even to give Tonali a rest, but I think the first midfielder on the team sheet for Tuesday should be Miley. He's never let us down this season whilst he's played in fleeting moments, granted, but. Are we going to build him up and then do what we did with Anderson, sell him on? He's got to have an opportunity to not cement his place in the first team, but to be given the encouragement. If someone isn't performing, he's next in line and he gets his opportunity. And I think Tuesday would be ideal for him. As I said, at home on a pitch he's very comfortable on, and the fact that it'll be a passing type of game, and I would be playing maybe instantly. So for me, yes, and it's up to the manager who the other two are. But for me, I'll be picking Miley to start with, and because he will take a shot, he will have the pass that can release Alanga, or the crossfield that might release Gordon, and that's it. Get Miley on, not first goal. I don't think he'll score first goal, but I would play him on Tuesday.
Okay, big changes ahead, Steve, on Tuesday night, or what are you expecting? I mean, we can't change massively at the back. We could bring Ramsdale in, of course, but I don't think Pope's done anything wrong. You could bring Fabian Schär in, but I mean, it's not going to change the fullback situation. You could take a gamble and bring Murphy in, young Murphy in as a fullback, but again, Eddie doesn't seem too confident. That's you'd imagine the back four's going to be the same. The midfield, do you rest Alanga and Gordon and bring in Murphy and Barnes? And, with that midfield, do you make that decision that Stu's talked about and play Miley and, either drop Joe Linton or Bruno or Tonali, and up front, you're fairly limited. You either start with Asula or you start with Voldemar. So we're not going to be talking wholesale changes, I would imagine, but there's going to be changes made. Certainly, even just on a rotational basis due to people's fitness or whether they got a knock yesterday.
This is Eddie Howe, Steve. He'll not make changes. He'll go if he can with the starting lineup that he had on yesterday. He could bring Kraft in and push Trippier to left back, complete Kraft at right back. Have the two central defenders done anything to be broken up? Probably not. The only downside I have, I suppose, that you could point towards the two central defenders in Chow and Botman is that they don't seem to communicate. They don't seem to talk. They're not great communicators. They very much concentrate on their own game. They're not organising. I think when you've got somebody like Fabian Schär or you've got a Dan Burn and a Kieran Trippier, then you leave the organising to them. But I think that if I was going to point a finger at them about anything, it would just be, lads, you're going to have to start taking responsibility and open your mouth a little bit more and start to if you need help, start screaming for help from that central midfield three. If you think they're sitting too far forward, then get a hold of them and demand for them to come back. That they are changes. A lot's going to depend on whether Joe Linton is fit, and I don't think Joe Linton is fit at the moment. I think we brought him back in, and he looked cumbersome. He looked so much off the pace. We've seen him go off with injuries this season already. He was struggling at the end of last season. I don't think he would ever consider dropping Bruno or Tonali in a European game. So I think he's limited. The question would be, does he bring Ramsey in to try and bring a bit of pace into that midfield? Because they did look a bit leggy yesterday. Does he do that and make it a 4, as I said earlier? Does he bring Miley in for Joe Linton, which could be a good shout? But again, I wonder what Miley is. I don't know whether Miley's a defensive midfielder, whether he's a creative midfielder or an attacking midfielder who can play just behind the front three and at the point of a tip and be a bit more dynamic. I honestly don't know, and I don't think Eddie Howe knows. I don't think Miley himself knows yet. Probably because he hasn't had a long enough run in the team to actually cement down, a position of his own. And when I say position, I mean central midfield. I'm not part of a right. I'm not part of a left. I'm a central midfielder. I can either play deep central midfield or I can play a little bit further forward central midfield, and I can stroke the ball around. And I don't think that they've sussed him out yet. I don't think he's sussed out. Whether it's just because of his age, that's why he's very much in and out. I don't think he'll make that many changes. What we're going to see on Tuesday is going to be a typical Mourinho. We're going to see him raving on the touchline at times. We're going to see him getting in the face of officials because that's what he does, because he's going to do that to get the crowd wound up against him, not against his team. He's going to put out a team that's going to frustrate, but probably play with a bit of pace and try and counteract us rather than anything else. You know what, we know what to expect when Mourinho comes. He'll come with all the grace and all the nice words about Sir Bobby, and then for those 90 minutes he'll be an absolute twat and just go for it, you know, and he'll be in everybody's face, and he's entertaining. There's no question about that. But it's a European game. We've got to go there. We've played some decent football. We were unlucky, I thought, against Barcelona, or they were a class team. But we've got opportunities here to get another 3 points on the board with this league system that they've got. And it's a Tuesday night, and you notice, what did the Portuguese do? They gave their European Portuguese teams the opportunity to play on a Friday before they travel to a game on a Monday for a match on a Tuesday. You look at what happens here, and you know, it's say that I'm amazed we didn't get moved to a Sunday, to be perfectly honest, because there is no regard given to any of the clubs that are playing in European football as far as the Premier League, and more than that as far as the TV people are concerned. I suppose the only saving grace is that we had a 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday. They didn't move us to a Friday night and put us on a TV to make it difficult for the fans. It probably would have been nice and easy for the team to give us a little bit of an opportunity to sort of, you know, rest ourselves and get ourselves ready. And I think somebody put on the strapline there, we're playing games, we're not getting the opportunity to do anything on the training pitch. And I think we're suffering from that a little bit. I think what some of the performances we're seeing, I think Eddie would love to get the players on the training pitch and do a week's training with them, but he's not going to get that. And then they're going to be off on international duty again for a couple of weeks in November. It's only a couple of weeks' time, and then, you know, then it's straight back into European football and cup football. You know, we've got the Spurs game coming up, and if we get through that, then there's another League Cup game coming up in December. Games are coming thick and fast. That's why you need a quality squad, not just numbers.
Steve, nearly half the league have got European games.
Yeah,
you know, it's not just Newcastle. So I don't buy this that they need them on the training ground. These are professionals who should be able to understand the tactics. The majority of the squad know exactly what's required of them. And yesterday they put in a performance that's not befitting of their standards, but they've raised the bar themselves by creating what they've done over the last 2 or 3 years. So they let everyone down yesterday. That's not due to a lack of training. I get it, every team, but if we want to be successful to sign the best players, we have to be offering European football and going deep into cup competitions, just like Man City, just like Liverpool, just like Arsenal, just like Chelsea. And they don't have the same time, yet they can still get wins. All of them won yesterday. Man City won yesterday, Arsenal won yesterday, Chelsea won yesterday. And they had just as many players away on international duty as we did. So we have to get used to it.
Yeah, I agree. But what we also had is with Man City and with Chelsea and with Arsenal is you have a deep squad of quality. And I don't think we have the quality within our squad. They were able to make changes over the weekend. And I bet you a bottom dollar that their teams will not look like as anything like the team that they put out in their European games this week. And I suspect our team will be exactly the same team as we put out on Saturday. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking this is where, as well, because we brought players in very, very late in the transfer window, I don't think Eddie's ever had a chance to sit with those players or go out on the training pitch with those players for a week or a fortnight between games and actually spend some time just organising. I think it's very much paperwork with them. It's very much that's the system we want to operate, and we'll have a quick conversation. We'll have a quick couple of days, and then we're back and you know, we're trying to learn things and have conversations while sitting in hotels or on aeroplanes and this type of thing. And I think that's where we're missing out. I think we also, because of the situation that we had when a certain player left and a certain player went on strike, I think we had very much a kind of like, what are we about type of attitude. You know, the players didn't know what was going on, and I think it made it very, very difficult for all within the club to just get their heads around what was going on. what the outcome was going to be. Nobody really knew what the outcome was going to be, and I think it has affected us. And that's why I think in the January transfer window we can see changes coming. I can see changes coming. I hope I'm right. And I think one of the things that we need, even though we've got Wissa coming back, but potentially is it being on the strap line, players, like Wissa going to the African Cup of Nations, I think we need to bring in a recognised striker, even if it's on loan. And I've mentioned the name to you guys. I would be looking blow the Premier League apart in terms of the associated party transfers and go on loan and get Ivan Toney from Saudi Arabia for a couple of months, and then you would see, because he's a target, he's a man in the middle, and I think that's probably what we're lacking. And I think that we need somebody strong, someone who can hold the ball up in a more defined area than where we're having Valdemada holding the ball up at the moment. And that's no criticism of Valdemada. It would just be funny watching the two of them fighting over penalties.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Steve, before we finished, it was said earlier in the show that we started last December on 12th. Then we won 9 games in a row, and we were playing twice a week. You're not tired. You're not tired when you're winning, and that's the thing. We because we had a bad performance yesterday, and we had a bad performance against Arsenal, and nearly got away with it. We haven't yet hit our stride, and we will. And that's what we have to remember, that we've got no danger of getting relegated. We've got no danger of finishing mid-table. Every single person who watches the Premier League will tell you Newcastle will finish in Europe next season. It's just which part of Europe. And momentum's everything. We need to start somewhere. If you're going on a winning run, we've got a stretch of fixtures now where we can put 4 or 5 wins together, and we're capable of doing it. So, like I say, we go win 4-0 on Tuesday. They won't be tired come Saturday. They'll be desperate, knowing at the bit to get back on that pitch. And that's it's the mindset. So Tuesday for me, anyhow, should be telling them this is your cup final. You go out and right your wrongs and leave every drop of sweat and energy you've got on that pitch and put a performance in. Because if they do that and they win very comfortably, which I suspect they will, they won't be tired on Saturday. So that's the way I see it, that they can fix themselves. You don't get tired when you're winning.
I want them to go out, Stu, thinking that they're playing in a semi-final. And every game coming up is a semi-final, because at the end of it, there's a final. And I want them to be fighting and fighting. The problem I have is which Newcastle United is going to turn up. How are they going to lift their game? They've all got to lift their game at once. That's the professionalism that's got to come into it. And if there are players there that feel as though things are not going right, then they've got to book their ideas up pretty damn quickly. We've said it before, Stu, and we'll say it again. PIF will not put up with second best. They will not put up with performances like this for very much longer. If there are players who need to pull their socks up, they need to do it before the January transfer window. Otherwise, they'll find that they're going to be at the bottom of the rung, because they'll be replaced.
Great show tonight. Thank you, Steve Hasty, for stepping in due to Mitch's internet issues. Thanks to everybody for watching. Back live tomorrow night, 6 o'clock with the Fans Forum. Take care. See you later.
Cheers, Steve. Thanks for helping.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk.